And so my friend, my fellow entrepreneur, my question is for you, what are you most proud of? What are you most proud of? What has been your biggest reward in 2023, right? What was some of the biggest blessings that allowed you to be a blessing to others, right? And even more importantly, what abundance are you going to create in 2024, right? What is the abundance that you're going to bring into your life that you're going to create in 2024? And how will you bring this abundance into your life? I will tell you, I have never entered a new year and saw so much positivity, like just around. Like people are really excited about 2024. I'm seeing a lot of positive posts. People are just really excited about it. I hope you guys are excited about it too. And today, we've got a really exciting topic to talk about. I think it's a great topic that really welcomes in the new year. I think a lot of people are spending a lot of time on goal setting right now. And I like this topic because I think it's really important, right? Whenever we are starting something new, whenever we're fine tuning, wherever we're planning to go to that next level, right? And I'm not going to talk about traditional goal setting. I'm not going to talk about goal setting actually at all. But I think something that needs to actually come before you set goals, right? And it's interesting because at the end of 2023, I got to spend some time with one of my favorite people in the world. I got to spend some time with Allie Brown. And she was actually recording me on one of her episodes called The Reward for her podcast, The Reward, for you guys that listen or follow Allie. And it was interesting because during this interview, she asked me a question that, I was expecting her to ask me, but I hadn't really put a lot of thought into it before. And that question that she asked me was, what are some of the biggest rewards that I personally experienced being an entrepreneur? And although it's a simple question, right? Obviously, being in the reward podcast, she would ask, what are the rewards? It was a question that got me a little bit thinking about, what are some of the most significant things that I personally have experienced that I personally have really been proud of as an entrepreneur, right? And what are some things that have happened that truly just light up my day, right? And it got me thinking because I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we don't take time to really think about what are the rewards of our labor, right? What are the things that really makes our day worth it, that really just lights us up, that really makes it an incredible thing. And what happens is that, not only is it important to talk about it, right? Talk about what the rewards are, but we have to, as entrepreneurs, as we're going through our journeys, as we're waking up every day and we're doing the thing that we do, it's important to really celebrate, right? Celebrate those rewards, right? Be intentionally celebratory about those rewards, right? And really make it a big thing when these really great things happen. And it was interesting because, many years ago, I was going through my Profit First certification, right? And at the same time that I was going through this certification, I was actually going back to school at the same time to get my certification as a coach. And one of the things that you do when you're learning about coaching and you're learning about how to really motivate people and to create actions, right, that create a certain result is one of the things that you study heavily is the study of psychology. And you guys probably remember from high school. How many of you guys took psychology in high school? I remember taking that subject in high school. Psychology specifically is that study of the mind and behavior, right? It's a combination of what happens in the mind that triggers behavior. And as I was going through this coaching certification, right, there was this guy, there was this picture that kept showing up over and over again in my curriculum. And I'm going to go ahead and share with you this picture of this guy here so you guys can see him. So this guy here, this little simple guy, he became like my best friend because literally every single day I saw this guy. And he's a simple guy, right? He's a simple guy. He's got a head, he's got a body, and he seems like a simple guy, right? Who wouldn't want to be friends with him? And on the outside, he seemed very simple, right? But the reality was the more that I studied him, the more that I looked at him, right? I began to realize that this guy, this simple guy that you guys see here, was actually a pretty complex guy. He was a pretty complicated guy. In fact, what I found was, yeah, he had this body, but he had a mind, right? He had a mind, and his mind had a body attached to it. And this mind, right, was a very complicated mind. This mind had a conscious mind, right? It had the ability to have conscious thoughts. It had a subconscious mind. And these things were starting to also impact his body, right? And this conscious mind was the thinking mind. So it was the mind that said, what do I want to have for lunch? Right. And if I'm having this for lunch, how do I feel about having this for lunch? Am I happy about this lunch that I'm about to have? Or is it a lunch that I have to have because I don't have any other options? Right. And again, all of this were linked together, and these things are impacting his body. And what was happening was, when he was thinking about, what it was he having for lunch, right? In his conscious mind and this subconscious mind, what was happening was it was creating these chemical reactions, right? You guys remember dendrites and synapses from your psychology studies, right? And it was interesting because, it became important that we understood that these thoughts that he was having, right, were creating feelings, right? They were creating emotions, right? They were creating chemical reactions in his body. And so what I'm saying is, as people, right, it's important to choose your thoughts, right? Be conscientious about the thoughts that you're choosing, because these thoughts trigger feelings, right? They create emotions. They create chemical reactions, right? That ultimately create actions and behaviors, right? And these actions and behaviors drive your results. So if you're thinking positive things, if you're thinking about the things that you want, if you're recognizing the good things in your life, right? That's creating positive emotions, right? Which drives positive actions and behaviors that get you towards your results, right? And so what I'm telling you is you have to choose your thoughts wisely, right? Because those thoughts drive actions, and those actions ultimately drive your results. And so today what I want to do is I want to talk about your rewards as what I want to talk about. And I'm glad that you guys are joining me today and talking about these rewards, because my question for you is, what have been some of the rewards that you have experienced as an entrepreneur? Okay. What are some of the great things that you have started to achieve, or that you've experienced, that you've been able to do because of your journey as an entrepreneur? And today, what I want to do is I want to really talk about this. I want to talk about these rewards. And I don't just want to talk about these rewards. I want to shout out about it, right? Because I think as entrepreneurs, we don't talk enough about our rewards, right? We don't talk about the good things that are happening, the good things that have happened, right? And the lives that we've lived. And I think that the reality is, we live in a culture today that teaches us, right? And the reality is, I think, like I said, we live in a culture that teaches us, it teaches things like focus on humility, right? But we live like in a society, right, that focuses on a humility. It teaches you to focus on humility. It teaches us to make ourselves small in many cases. And we do this because, unfortunately, so that the others around us who are not achieving as much will not have to feel like they have to struggle, right? That's why we're taught the way that we're taught. And we're encouraged a lot of times as entrepreneurs or as people that are high achieving, right, not to speak up about our accomplishments, not to speak about the great things that we're doing in our lives. And what happens as a result of not being able to share the things that we're experiencing, share the wins that we're having, right, is that it creates a sense of insecurity, right? It creates a sense of insecurity and a lot of entrepreneurs, right? And when you have that sense of insecurity, right? When you have that not being able to really express who you are and what you're doing and where you're going, right? It creates a mental conflict, right? I think it creates in some ways, I'm going to call it Harry Potter, obscurial, right? That obscurial energy where you cannot be free to express yourself, right? And what happens is when we're forced to play small or forced to keep what we're doing a secret, right? Is that, subconsciously, right? Subconsciously in our mind, what happens when we're playing small to meet others' expectations is that, we start to really lose, right, part of ourselves, right? We lose that identity. We lose that real ability to really step into our happiness. And I also think, we live in a culture too, where if we speak too much about the things that have gone well for us, right, because we've been taught to be humble, to play small, what happens is people start to develop this sense that, you start to see these insecurities arise that, if I celebrate, if I step into this moment of being happy for what has happened, right, for me or to me, right, these moments are going to be snatched away. And some people have even come as far as to, believe that if they celebrate too much, right, if they allow themselves to be happy for their accomplishments, right, they allow themselves to soak in that moment, right? And they allow themselves to really sit in that happiness and just enjoy it for a moment, right? And you guys may have felt this way too, that, that moment might just get snatched away, right? If I get too happy in this moment, that moment might just get snatched away. And so what happens is, people start to tread carefully, right? They start to tread quietly, right? They start to feel like they're constantly walking on eggshells. Like, how long is this good gonna last, right? Becomes a question that people start to ask in their mind. And they start to treat life as if they're playing this game on the sidewalk. You guys know that game, that game that we played as kids, that if you step on a crack, you might break your mother's back, right? And what happens is they start to play small, right? They start to play small and they start to self-sabotage their success. And what happens is they never learn to truly accept the fact that they are worthy of happiness, right? Because you guys know the truth, right? Deep down inside, you absolutely know the truth. And that truth is, everyone in this world is worthy of their own happiness, right? No matter who you are, everyone in this world is worthy of being happy. One of my favorite scriptures is Jeremiah 29:11, right? And that scripture says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future, right? It's one of my favorite scriptures. I bought a Bible just because it had that in the front, And the reality is, God doesn't put us on earth to live a life of constant suffrage, right? Where we're constantly battling things or living in a moment of when is this happiness going to be taken away, right? God put us here to experience abundance. He put us here to experience growth. He put us here to experience joy, right? And today, what I want to do is I want us to do that. I want us to accept the rewards of our hard work. And not just that, but I want you to honor those rewards by speaking about them, okay? And even more than speaking about them, I want you to speak more rewards into existence. Okay. I want you guys to have more travel, more Morocco trips, more South Africa trips, more trips to Mexico, right? And I want you to really just embrace being able to share those stories and share the fact that you were able to do this. Okay. That you were blessed to be able to do this because of the paths you've taken, the decisions that you made. And today, what I want to do is I want to talk about how do we accomplish this? How do we accomplish creating more rewards? How do we accomplish welcoming and more rewards? How do we speak more of those rewards into our lives? And how does one manifest more goodness into their life? Okay, that's what I want to talk about today. And when I'm talking about this, when I talk about speaking about more goodness into your life, what I'm talking about is more success, more time, more money, right? And even more importantly, more joy. Those are the things that I want you to have more of this year, right? And I want you to create those chemical reactions. We talked about those dendrites and synapses. We talked about my simple man with the head and the body and its conscious and subconscious thoughts, right? And how those dendrites synapses are happening. And I want you to create those chemical reactions that drive abundance, right? I want you to create those chemical reactions that drive abundance. And I'm going to start off by saying, first of all, where it starts is you got to start with recognizing that good things do happen to you. Okay. You got to recognize that good things do happen to you. And these things don't happen occasionally, right? They're not this once in a lifetime thing or this, every so often something good happens to me, right? In fact, I want you to acknowledge that good things happen to you and they happen to you a lot, okay? They happen to you a lot. And I would even venture to say they happen for you every single day, okay? Every single day, good things are happening to and for you, okay? Every single day. Now, don't misunderstand me. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that every day you're going to win the lottery, okay? I'm not saying that every day you're going to win the lottery, but good things do happen to you. And some of these things might be big, right? They might be significant, right? They could be life-changing things. However, everyday small things happen too, right? Small things happen that are good, that are happening for you, right? And it's these small things, right, that are important because, well, those small things, they just make life a little bit better, right? And when I talk about small things, I'm talking about things like as simple as, going into a crowded shopping center, right? Visiting a place that statistically there's no chance in the world that you're going to find parking, right? And one of those places I'm thinking like Black Friday, trying to go to the mall, right? Is what I'm thinking. But somehow, after this quick prayer, right? This quick prayer, you enter this parking lot and voila, there it is, a parking space right in front of you, right? And it's not a handicap parking space, right? It's a guilt-free parking space, right? And it's a blessing and it's there just for you. Somebody is just leaving their parking space just as you're arriving and God just gave you that parking space, okay? This is what I'm talking about. I'm also talking about things like the client who just said yes, right? The one that you thought there was no way in the world that they would be working with you, the one that you're thinking to yourself as you're don't have time to do this proposal. Should I even be writing this proposal, right? And I'm talking about the one that, this client just said yes on a day that you were actually feeling a little bit down about yourself, right? And you're wondering if maybe I just missed my calling. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this anymore, right? Maybe I should be doing something different in your life. And this is the person that just said yes to you when you were feeling low. And not only did they say yes, but they just went and paid in full, okay? And by the way, you were really put in that person's life to help them be successful, okay? And suddenly it feels like you just got a memo from God, right? He just sent you a message reinforcing that you are exactly where he wants you to be right now, right? And you're doing exactly what he willed you to do. And you're exactly doing what you should be at the right time, at the right place, right? I'm also talking about that cup of tea, right? That cup of tea late at night after a really tiring day that your daughter brings you out of nowhere, right? Maybe it's that hot cup of peppermint tea that you didn't even ask for. You weren't expecting it. And she did it just because she thought about you, right? It's the little rewards that matter, right? It's the little rewards that are important. And it's these little rewards that accumulate. And more importantly, these rewards create the abundance that you're going to experience all throughout your life, right? And when you recognize these little rewards, when you recognize these little wins that are happening, what happens to you? What happens to you from a psychological standpoint when you recognize the rewards that are happening in your life? Does anybody know what happens? Well, I'll tell you, you get more of them, right? You get more of them. You get more rewards when you recognize that these things are happening. And that's the law of universal abundance. There's a scripture, Matthew 25:29. And it says, for whoever has will be given more, and they will have abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them, right? And so, my friend, recognize the little rewards, right? Don't just recognize them, right? Accumulate a lot of them, right? Accumulate these rewards, collect rewards, collect them in abundance and recognize abundance because that's how you're going to gain more, right? You're going to gain more when you can recognize that good things are happening, when you're celebrating those good things, right? It just changes your entire energy, your entire aura, right? Matthew 13:12 says, whoever has will be given more and they will have abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them. This is why I speak to them in parables. Though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand, right? So what this is saying is to have abundance, you have to be able to see it. You have to be able to recognize it. You have to be able to celebrate these rewards. You have to be grateful for your rewards, no matter how big or how small that reward might be. And, I think about this, who wants to continue to give gifts to someone who doesn't appreciate it, right? If you were regularly giving them gifts and they weren't happy and they weren't appreciating it, right? Who's going to continue to give that person gifts, right? And that's exactly how God is. The more you appreciate the gifts, the more you're going to get of it, right? And so where does that start? That starts with write down the rewards, and not just write it down daily if you can do it daily, right? I like to journal, right? I like to journal and I like to write down those rewards every single night before I go to bed. And you'd be surprised, that how many good days you actually experience when you start to write them down and you start to track them. And when you start to write them down, it doesn't just reinforce that good things are happening to you, but they're happening to you daily when you start to write them down. And the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to celebrate the reward. Yes, you heard me. You're going to celebrate the reward and you're going to celebrate the reward big. You guys know I was on vacation the last couple of weeks and I have an aunt and my aunt is like 80 years old, right? She's almost about to turn 80. And one of the things that my aunt wanted to do all her life was she wanted to go on a cruise. She just wanted to go on a cruise. And not just any old cruise, she wanted to go on one of those cruises where she could get a room that was on a really high floor that had a balcony. That was her dream, was to go on a cruise with a room with a balcony that was on a high floor. And this was important because you see, my aunt, she was born in 1946. She's a World War II baby. And she was born at a time where schools were segregated in the rural communities of North Carolina. And she was born on a farm, and she didn't even have a proper birth certificate. So you can imagine this woman going through life. It was difficult to get a passport for her. It was difficult to get a well-paying job, right? Because she had to prove that she really existed, right? And for her, life had actually dealt her a pretty hard hand, right? Her mother died the same year that she turned 18 years old. And when my grandmother died, my aunt was the eldest child of her siblings. And although she was extremely intelligent, that she did well in school, she found herself in a position where she had to sacrifice her dreams because she needed to prioritize raising her younger siblings, who at the time were orphaned. My mom was 8, her younger sister was 5 at the time. And so my aunt spent her entire life working as a maid. Like, literally, she spent her entire life working as a maid. And not only was she a maid, she made a salary that was minimum wage is what she made growing up. And that was the best she could do because she had sacrificed that education, right, to raise her younger siblings is what she did. But my aunt still had a dream, right? She still had a dream. She still had a dream, even though she couldn't necessarily get that for herself. And her dream was one day take this cruise, right, and stay in a room with a balcony. That was her dream. And one year, I promised that I would do that for her, is what I did. And this Christmas, I completed that promise. I took her on her cruise and got her room with a balcony. I rented one of those motor scooters so she could easily get around, got her one of those fancy rooms with a balcony, and she got to have afternoon tea with her grandniece on a fancy boat heading to Belize. And for her, it was a dream come true. It was her reward from God. And the reward for me, my reward was being able to be the vessel that allowed her to have her dream fulfilled. And those are the things that I'm proud of. Those are some of the things that I'm proud of. And so my friend, my fellow entrepreneur, my question is for you, what are you most proud of? What are you most proud of? What has been your biggest reward in 2023, right? What was some of the biggest blessings that allowed you to be a blessing to others, right? And even more importantly, what abundance are you going to create in 2024, right? What is the abundance that you're going to bring into your life, that you're going to create in 2024? And how will you bring this abundance into your life? Celebrate the rewards. Take time to celebrate the rewards. What happened in 2023 that just made it an amazing year for you, right? And what abundance are we going to create next year? I want you guys to start thinking about that. And we're going to really look at how do we bring those goals from paper to reality this year. And so until next time, may the profits be with you.